Hello again, whiskey friends. Thanks for joining everybody for another Tuesday discussion. So, here on Tuesdays, we do like to make video content based on the comments and questions that we are getting from Instagram, getting from Patreon, or getting from these YouTube comments in themselves. And one of the things that has popped up recently, but also playing off of a video that I did a few months ago now, the decline of the secondary market, it does seem like more and more people are picking up in the declines on their local area. Other people have been conversing with me and challenging me on this a little bit like, no, 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 no. I still see it vibrant in these ways. I'm going to take a step back and try to address some of the questions that I've gotten about the secondary market, but I truly think there is zero doubt that the secondary market is on significant decline. But it's interesting to talk about what remains of that secondary market. And I'm curious to see at the end of this, you agree with my take, or if you're seeing something different in your area. So be sure to come back into the comments and continue this discussion. But thank you for joining me today, whiskey friends. Let's kick off the show. All right. Well, as we get into this discussion, we are going to be talking about the essentially the slow decline of the secondary market, at least what I am seeing and what the people around me are seeing. Now, keep in mind, when I talk about the people around me, then I'm existing within an ecosystem here. Maybe I'm in a small bubble. Maybe it just could be the fact that the groups that I'm in are hitting their own stage of decline, and there's other groups that I could be joining that are being more vibrant, and the community is thriving, or all those type of things. But for the most part, all the groups that I'm in have either completely kind of shuttered or are really in a state of decline where you see posts out there, right? Like people are posting, but people aren't commenting. People aren't replying. People aren't, buying it now. People aren't even negotiating. It's just sitting there and then it's getting closed for lack of interest. Now, when I brought this up the last time, people kind of challenged me on it, like, no, 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 no. I still see lots of Dusties out there, and I still see the Buffalo Trace products moving, and I still see this, and I still see that, and these certain things are moving. That is true. And I don't think that will ever go away. When I say the secondary market is in decline, I don't mean that it'll truly ever go away. It will never go away. It'll always exist. We live in this, supply and demand, and the supply is so low on some of these bottles when you truly think about it. And I think the amount of people that got into bourbon are going to create this floor on the demand that the secondary is just always going to be there, but only for certain bottles. What I am seeing, and I'm curious here, so this is where I need feedback and I need comments, but I essentially think there are now mainly two groups of people that are keeping the secondary afloat, and I would describe them as whiskey hobbyists or taters. Some taters. We'll get into the definition of those though. So when I'm talking about the whiskey hobbyists, I'm talking about the people that are, essentially chasing the Dusties or chasing the LEs of certain brands, the limited editions. The people that are trying to be completists with their collection, or they weren't lucky to get something from their local store, so they're going to the secondary market to get it. But those are your hobbyists, and your hobbyists are always going to exist. They're going to exist in literally any hobby, and that is going to create a secondary market. So, an example of a bottle that would be more of a hobbyist bottle that I still see move pretty quickly on the secondary market would be something like the Maker's Mark Cellar Age. One of those goes up, it usually goes pretty quick. Now, when I talk about the taters, I'm not saying it in any derogatory terms, but ultimately the things that I see that still pretty much move no matter what are Buffalo Trace products and Willet products. And those are the two. And even when I say Willet, I'm going to say purple tops, not even the green rise move anymore. It's really just the purple tops. But those will move pretty much no matter what when someone posts them. If it's a EH Taylor barrel proof or a Stag Junior, a Stag, any of the BTAC, of course, that'll move. But man, when it comes to other things, I was kind of keeping a list here, like just recent posts. So I was just kind of scanning it this week, kind of keeping this video in mind, but seeing things that were even going pretty darn close to retail. We're not even talking about secondary prices sometimes when I'm talking about this, but I've saw some old Carters that weren't moving anymore. Jack Daniel's 12 was just sitting there, got no interest whatsoever. Elijah Craig 18s don't move anymore. Midwinter Night's Dram. So I think that's probably an example where they pushed so much this year. But man, that was always a hot ticket item on secondary the last couple years. Slowing down. Uh, and what I think is happening too is that unfortunately or fortunately, depending on what your preference is going to be here, because some people are going to listen to this and be like, yes, the secondary market's declining. I'm going to get stuff. I mean, I wouldn't go that far quite yet. And there is a downside of this, and we're gonna hit that downside probably towards the end of this video. But it probably means less new people are as rapidly entering our hobby as was what was happening before. And the one thing that was really propping up the secondary market for like any bottle was the fact that people were playing Pokemon or playing a bingo coverall board, and they just wanted to try everything, and they wanted something of everything, and every bottle that they heard hyped in any way they wanted their hands on. I think that craze is over. See less new people entering the market, and when you have less new people enter the marketplace like that, then we start becoming a concentrated group of people that have tried and owned all these bottles already. We already played our bingo coverall, and now we're just concentrated on the things that we really like or really are attributing value to, or the new LEs or special releases coming out for that year that we're interested in. So that's an interesting switch. And, on top of maybe losing the new entries into the market, I think what we're also losing, which this one's probably a really good one, we're losing the gambling. So, really interested in the comments if you're seeing that as well. But what I find really fascinating is that, gosh, it almost seemed like for years there, people were essentially playing like fireballs and all those type of things. And they were doing it purely from like the dopamine gambling angle. Like it was just a high to win the bottles. And then they get the bottle and they treat it like a trophy and they display it on the shelves, but then they wouldn't open it. And they're almost playing the game like it's a stock market. Like they're just holding on to these bottles thinking everything's going to increase in price when really we're playing a game of hot potato and you just don't realize it. But it does seem like the straight up gambling is gone. That is wonderful. Now, all that stuff in and of itself, though, one thing that got so interesting is I think the secondary prices got so crazy and extreme that even at 10% of a bottle, if you're doing the fireball, man, that wasn't even worth it anymore. It wasn't even worth the gamble, depending on the price, because the prices were so high. Uh, so that's been an interesting change as well. But once again, interested to hear what you're seeing and what you're hearing. So let's see here. I think I hit all my points there, just going through my notes. So one thing that I do think is interesting in all this, though, and I think a conclusion that many are going to take, hearing me talk about this, maybe they're on Facebook, maybe they aren't, maybe they're in the secondary groups, maybe they aren't. But even hearing something like, oh, the secondary group is in decline, leads people to be like, yes, it's finally in decline. I'm going to find stuff on the shelves. And they get excited for it. There is a dark side to this. Now, for hobbyists, I think we're just in it, and there's going to be enough hobbyists that everything's going to have a secondary value when it comes to that one way or another. Like, that's not going to go away. But if the craze is gone from the bourbon market, we probably have a retraction that is going to take place in the next, 2 to 5 years, it's going to be the same thing that you see with the craft breweries that are out there. So if you went on Google right now and you Googled craft brewery closing, I mean, it's happening all over the country. It took a while, since the craft beer boom of, I would say, the mid 2010s. That was probably the craze of the craft beer, when you could, see these annual releases come out and you couldn't get them unless you get them on that very, very first day. Doesn't really happen anymore. The Bell Mead honey one comes to mind. Not the Bell Mead. Oh, I can't remember this name of it. Oh, Bell Haven. See, I can't even remember the name of the craft breweries anymore. That's how far away from the game I am. Point being in that, though, I was pretty deep in it a decade ago, and now I'm like completely out of the world. And now I'm saying things like Bell Mead when I'm supposed to be talking about craft brewery brands. But that whole industry saw a peak, and all these new brands came in there, and there's craft breweries all across the country. And now it seems like more and more I'm hearing stories of this brewery's closing, this brewery's closing, this brewery's closing. So the one thing that I do fear when I do see essentially what I'm calling the decline in the secondary market is, what does that mean then for all of the craft distilleries that maybe haven't reached a point where their head's above water yet? Are we going to then see, and probably inevitably see, the closure of a lot of these brands that we adore right now and take for granted 5 years from now, 10 years from now? That could probably happen as well. So when we're talking about the decline of the secondary market, we are talking about the decline in the interest in whiskey from a whole, general population standpoint. That's what we're seeing. I still think there's going to be enough hobbyists and enough enthusiasts in this to keep the secondary market afloat. I mean, forever. There's always going to be a demand. And some of these releases only have 1,000 bottles, 2,000 bottles, 5,000 bottles, even 10, 20,000 bottles. It's not enough for the amount of people that probably want to get their hands on it. So it's always going to exist on some level. But the decline of the secondary market probably does mean we've peaked, and this game's going to get a whole lot more interesting here over the coming years. So that's a follow-up to the prior video here. Interested to hear your reactions to this particular video, and also what you're seeing in your markets and your areas, and if you're seeing the same things I'm seeing. So come back in the comments, let us know what you think. And if you have any more follow-ups, top questions or comments on this particular topic, maybe we'll do another one in a few months, accumulate those. So thank you for joining me today, whiskey friends. I'll catch you on the next Tuesday discussion. Goodbye, everybody.
Jeff, just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello again. Oh, Jeffrey, you should just be friends with me.
All right. Stop the tape. Hop Slam. It's called Hop Slam. That's what it's called. Hop Slam. All right. That was the beer I was trying to talk about earlier. All right. Let's roll that back.
Jeff, just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello again. Oh, Jeffrey, you should just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello again. Oh, Jeffrey, you should just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you